everyone, this is Jamie from leto.x.crossstitch, and this is my YouTube channel focusing on my love of cross stitch. So this is Flosstube number 8, and in this video I'm going to be doing a recap of what I was able to stitch and finish and complete in May, and then also get into a little bit about what my plans are for June. At the top of this Flosstube, in the announcement sections, I really wanted to talk about like some of my goals for being on YouTube, and I've been thinking a lot about this, like why is it that I feel the need to share? Why is it that I'm taking the time to make these videos? Why is it that I'm, even creating things and thinking through, oh, when I show this on Flosstube, why is that something that I am inclined to do? And I think one of the things for me is not necessarily to be like famous by any means, not at all. If I could figure out a way to do this without showing you my face, I would. But I think it builds better connections if you can see my face. So definitely I'm not of any mind to be famous in any way, stretch, shape, or form. And or to like be known, I guess, maybe a little bit to be known as a cross stitcher, but not necessarily to be known as like someone in the industry, because I'm not, I'm just a regular stitcher, and then lately I've been putting out a couple patterns. But really my number one goal for Flosstube is to find community, because I don't really have people in my day-to-day life, people who live close to me, people that I can like chat with about this hobby that I have come to love so much and have become so obsessed with. So really for me, it's about connection. It's about meeting people online, in person at retreats and things like that. So saying that, I would love to meet you. If you wouldn't mind sharing in the comments like who you are, where you're from, maybe how long you've been stitching, just a quick hi so that I know that there's someone out there. I'm really, really grateful for everyone who has been tuning in for the past 7 Flosstubes. This is now Flosstube number 8, and I've gotten a couple comments and different things like that. And I really, 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 really appreciate anyone who has commented, anyone who's taken time to watch my videos. If you are new here, hi, my name is Jamie. I am a cross stitcher who's been stitching for kind of around 2 years, and then only this year, in the last few months, have I started putting out my own patterns. So to segue into another section or another bullet point under the announcement section is I have a brand new pattern that is available on my Etsy shop and in my Ko-Fi shop. So the name of this pattern is the Patriotic Palette, and I designed this knowing that at the end of this month I'm going to be attending the Stitching Sirens retreat here in San Antonio. It's put on by Under the Sea Fabrics, and the theme for this year's Stitching Siren retreat is red, white, and blue. So I was drifting off to sleep one night, or attempting to drift off to sleep one night, and I started thinking about that prompt. I started thinking about the fact that maybe I would want to design a pattern that I could like hand out to people, to get some to build, I don't know, what is it I'm trying to say? To like introduce people to me, to introduce people to my patterns. And so I was laying there trying to think of something that could incorporate something patriotic, the red, white, and blue, obviously this being the 250th anniversary of the United States, or rather the Declaration of Independence, which is something that I hadn't, obviously I learned this stuff many, many years ago, back in elementary school, but I hadn't really touched back on until recently when I rewatched the entire Outlander series and learned and realized again, remembered that the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. I think we all know that. It's part of Hamilton the musical, so a lot of people know that date. But the American Revolution, the war that created the United States, went on for many years after the United States declared itself independent from the UK. So that was just like something interesting to realize, and It wasn't like the end of the American Revolution that the United States was founded. We declared our independence and then continued to fight for the right for our independence. So, total aside there, but I started thinking about something patriotic for the 250th anniversary, and then also knowing that I wanted to incorporate some blooms, some florals, something that incorporated flowers, florals, nature, all that good stuff. And the very, very first thing that came to mind, and what came to mind super quickly, was a bow that was reminiscent of the American flag. And so I knew that I wanted it to like reference the American flag, but not necessarily look exactly identical to the American flag. So I added on one of the sides of the bow some star, something to represent the star pattern, and on the other side of the bow I did something to represent the stripes. And then for the little dangles, I don't know technical terminology for bows, that came down, I knew that I wanted one to be red, one to be white, and then just to add a little bit of texture into it. Then I designed the top part of the pattern that has the floral. I really wanted to include a daisy because daisies are my favorite flower. I absolutely love daisies. And some other little like, generic floral looking elements. And then I also knew that I wanted to add in some strawberries because summertime, 4th of July, all of that I really associate with strawberries. And strawberries are really cute and they're red, so they fit right in with this pattern. And so I had those two elements and I was trying to figure out how I can incorporate them, if I needed to add anything else to them. And I sketched a couple different things, like trying to figure out what the placement and the juxtaposition between the two would be, and I just knew that I needed an additional element. So that's where the dates came into play. So 1776 to 2026, the dates marking the 250th. And if you'll notice, the 1776 is charted in a serif font, so something that looks a little bit older and more traditional. And the 2026 is charted in a more digital, geometric, like font or typeface, to represent that we are now in this digital era. And so I added those dates in between the two elements, and I really liked how it looked, and I thought it looked great. But to my eye, it felt like it was missing some sort of element of me in it. Like, I really liked the design, and yes, I created it, but I didn't know necessarily that it would represent like my design aesthetic and my just my kind of MO when it comes to design work. And so I went looking for a little bit of inspiration. I know I talked about this a little bit in the last Flosstube video, but I was looking through my Pinterest page and I came across that I had pinned a bunch of like color palettes and like swatches of different marker colors or paint colors, all of these different things. And so that's where the idea for the Patriotic Palette came into play. And so I love seeing all of the colors of a project like all lined up next to each other, just because I love seeing like lines of color like that. I feel like maybe in needlework canvases they do that, like where you'll see the printed whatever the image is, and then in the corner there'll be like a swatch of all the different colors that are present in whatever's printed. And so drawing on a little bit on that, which is something I realized way after the fact, I charted in some little jewels, I guess you could say. It's somewhat jewel shaped at the bottom, so that you could have this little swatch of all the colors that are present in the pattern, and it can look all nice and cohesive together. And then I added the back stitching, the name of the piece, Patriotic Palette, and that's all just kind of a nod back to my scrapbooking days and loving to incorporate text projects. And so that is how that pattern came to be. And I am planning to give this out as a free giveaway at the Stitching Sirens Retreat. So if you are also planning to attend, please let me know. And then also come and find me at the retreat. I do plan to bring my finished piece for the brag table, and I will put, Leslie usually leaves this little card that lets you put your name and the name of the pattern and the name of the fabric and all of that stuff, so you don't have to go like wander around asking someone because you've seen it on the brag table. I'll probably try to put on that little card like what table I'm sat at, so you know where to come to either get a printed copy of the pattern if that's your preference. And then I'm also going to create some sort of like little digital card that'll link you with a QR code directly to where you can go to download the pattern for free. So please, if you are going to be attending the Stitching Sirens retreat, I would love to meet you, and be sure to find me. So a couple other smaller announcements. One, I don't even know if this is an announcement, but I don't really know where else to put it in this video, but I signed up to attend in 2027 Stitch North Weekend 2, and I am super excited to go and to have my ticket and to be planning for it. Stitch North 2026 just finished, so I have seen so many wonderful wrap-up videos from people who attended. It looks like they had an amazing time. I've been intrigued by Evertote and Roxy Floss for a while now, and I've only until now, only in the past month have I ever purchased anything from them, mainly because they're based outside of the United States. They're in Canada, so shipping's a bit expensive, and I want to make sure that I'm spending enough money to kind of justify the shipping. Neither here nor there, but yay, I'm going to Stitch North Weekend 2. If you also are planning to attend, please let me know. I'd love to hear. I don't know anyone else who's attending. I've never met anyone there. I'm going by myself. My husband may or may not come with me. Who knows? I'm totally fine to travel on my own, so it's no big deal if I do end up going solo. But I'm so excited, and I love Canada. Canada's a fantastic place to visit, and I've been telling my family in the past few years, like, we need to be summering in Canada, because we live down in South Central Texas with 100-degree heat waves, multiple days and weeks and sometimes months of 100-degree plus weather. Thankfully not this year. But yes, anything to beat the heat. I feel like Canada is a great place to go figure that out. And so, like, in my head, I would love to be able to visit like all the provinces. So far I've only been to Ontario, I've been to Toronto, and then British Columbia, I've been to Vancouver, and I'd love to see more. I think it's a great country. And then my very last announcement, again, it's kind of like I didn't really know where to put this in the video, but I've talked a little bit about my paper crafting experience and how I came over from the paper crafting industry to the cross stitch industry. I have nearly 30 years of experience and 30 years of having had the hobby of paper crafting in my life. I have not been paper crafting recently, but to kind of prove to you guys that I do have a lot of design background, just not in the cross stitch pattern world, I'm just curious if anyone would be interested in seeing any of my finished projects. Like, I'm not going to show you something similar to what we have here at Flosstube, which is a bunch of whips, but focusing more on the stuff that's totally complete. And it's really simple and easy. I've done it so many times for another YouTube channel that I had that was paper craft focused, which I'll link in the description in case anyone's interested in. But just let me know if you're interested in seeing any of that. I'd be happy to share some quick flip-throughs of totally completed projects, less about like the process of how those came together and more just like, hey, this is what my design experience and background is all about, and here you go, have a look. And then with all the videos that I plan to do, please note that I'm always going to be putting chapters in and time stamping things so that you can jump around to the parts of the video that are most interesting to you, skip some if they're not interesting to you at all. Just be sure to look for that in the description box on YouTube. Okay, so now I'm going to show some of my fully finished objects, my FFOs. And actually this month I was able to fully finish several of my projects because I made it a priority. I really had a few that were just like low-hanging fruit, things that just could be put into frames and maybe a little bit of trim added around it, and it was good to go. And so I just decided to tackle a few, and I will show you those now. So the first one I have is fully finished is the Patriotic Palette pattern that I just talked about in the announcements. I showed, I think, the completed stitching for this for the last video, but I can't recall if I shared the fully finished object, but here it is. It's in a 5x7 frame, and I did leave the glass in this one. I don't know why I felt inclined to do that. Usually I don't, but since there was nothing, it was literally the only thing that I framed was a piece of fabric that had been stitched on. It's easy to add the glass to it, so I left it, and I really like how it came together. I like this arch. It's kind of gothic arch to it. I was debating between a rounded, it's not what I call it, like an archway, kind of, I guess it's an archway, a rounded archway frame, and then this pointed gothic archway frame. And I tried it in both, and I really just loved how this framed the top, the floor portion of the pattern, framed really well in the tippy top of this. So I know that there is some glare because this is behind glass. Ooh, no, let's not show you the reflections. Yep, lots of reflections. But I might do what I did in the last video, and you may be seeing that it is a split screen, and on one side I am kind of zooming in a little bit further into this project so you can see some of the details. Again, because the closer I put my stuff to the camera settings change, or the camera video settings change, just because of how my camera works. And so I don't want to, it doesn't help. It does not work if I try to literally put this closer to you, closer to the camera, because then it will just change colors and you won't be able to see it. It usually turns it really dark. So that is one of my fully finished objects. Okay, so I had a few finished, completed patterns that I absolutely wanted to fully finish because I was just dragging my heels about finishing them. And one of them was the Defied the Doom Scroll patch that was part of Shaded Stitchery's inaugural Patreon month. It was a set of 3 patches, and I've stitched 2 of them, and I have fully finished one of them. And this was my first attempt at like whip stitching. It's messy, y'all. It's not perfect. I kind of wish I'd picked a different color other than the gray. But it works. It's done. And I'm happy with it. I think if I were to do this again, which I am, because there's another one I need to fully finish, I wouldn't cut the stitch pattern so closely. I wouldn't cut so closely to where the stitching is. I would have made a bigger margin. I did end up using the technique that Liz Matthews taught at the Jingle Ball last year for how to finish small pieces and then be able to cut them really close to the stitching. So it is kind of protected that way. But yeah, and then honestly what happened and why I didn't move on to the second patch is because this killed my hand. Holding it and then also trying to pierce through, I guess it's just a little bit of quilt cotton that's on the back, and that was part of the class. But I don't know, just the poking of it through and it not just being easily something that didn't easily glide through holes like you do in cross stitch, it killed my hand. And then there's so much to do around all 4 edges, even though this is a tiny little guy. Yeah, this was all my wrist could handle. And so I'm happy to have one patch completed, and one of these days when I focus again on some finishing, I will have the other patch ready to go. So one thing I really enjoy is pairing my cross stitch, my finished pieces, with fabric. It's such a joy and fun thing for me. I think it harkens back to my scrapbooking era. And so I love going to fabric stores and trying to find fabric that'll work with the pieces that I've completed. So I went shopping for 2 patterns that I knew that I wanted to finish this way. And I believe I talked about it in the last video. But I really like framing a piece of fabric and then mounting on top of the fabric the completed cross stitch piece. And so this is a pattern from xJuDesign. It's called Summer's Day, and it was an exclusive, I believe, at the Midsummer Stitch event from Lindy Stitches. And so I purchased it then, and I stitched it pretty quickly, and then again it just went into my drawer of completed patterns that needed to be finished. And knowing I'd finished another pattern earlier this year and knew that I wanted to do this fabric mounting combo thing. When I went to the fabric store, I also was looking around for options for this one, because I'm like, this is the same thing. I can do these two at the same time, so it's not as big of a process. Like, I'll have all my stuff out, that whole thing, kind of doing a batch. And so I really like how this one turned out. I went with this like super funky yellow because of the happy little accident I made when choosing flosses. So I mainly used all of the called for flosses, with the exception of the blues. So I remember when Jessica initially talked about this in her Flosstube months, like well over a year ago, way ahead of even Midsummer Stitch. She had an initial color palette, and then she ended up switching out the blues. I think she ended up switching out like the brand of, I think she went from like all DMC to some overdyed floss. Anyway, I really like the original blues, so I did ask her what the original blue colors were, and that is what I used here, because I just really loved the like sharp contrast of the like truer blue versus the teal blue, with these gorgeous pinks and reds and yellows. So that was the only intentional changing of floss that I did. The unintentional changing of floss that I did is this color up here. And Jessica charted it with, I believe, I might get this wrong, I believe she charted it with Classic Colorworks Sunflower. And I didn't pay attention to the CCC on the page, or like the initials for the company. I was looking at the other two, which I think are the other overdyed flosses that were in there, which were Weeks Dye Works. And so I pulled the sunflower for Weeks Dye Works instead of the sunflower from Classic Colorworks. I may be inverting those names, but I know that's what it was. It was like, instead of getting the Weeks Dye Works sunflower, I got the Classic Colorworks sunflower, or vice versa. And this is where I started. So I started with the wrong color, and even as I was stitching it, I was like, this doesn't look like the picture. And it took me a while to realize that was why. But I don't mind. Like, it makes mine stand out a little bit more from everyone else who has stitched this pattern. And I really thought it'd be fun to get a piece of fabric that would coordinate with that, so that you could see it a little bit, so it would highlight this a little bit more and provide enough contrast that you could really see this stitch piece, which is, I believe, on Dolomite from Fiber on a Whim, which was the called for fabric. And this has to be 18 count, because that's primarily what I use. So yeah, and this is now all finished and in its frame, its lovely frame. What I ended up doing was finishing this with the border that I had here, and I didn't pay any attention to like how big I wanted it in the frame. I just follow along with the margin and the border in the stitch piece, and then when it came time to put it on the fabric piece, it didn't matter to me like how it looked on the margins there. I just wanted to be able to see it, of course. But it wasn't like I was aiming for a specific size it needed to be before I mounted it on this piece of fabric. But I really love how it came out. I am super excited. Yeah, so I'm just really excited for this to be finished. And one of these days, I'm going to start putting all of these finished pieces, start decorating around my wall here. I did do some cleaning up and some organizing, so there's more things in the background here than have been before. And then I had this added, had my husband help me hang this little chair rail kind of shelf. It's not very deep at all, and have put the patterns that I've designed up there along with a couple of books. But anyway, last but not least, for when it comes to fully finished objects, like I said, I did a lot. I did 5 this month, and this is my favorite of the month so far. So this pattern is called The Seeds. It's from Quaternion Creations, and I stitched it on a 20 count Rustico Oatmeal from Zwiegart, and I used all of the called for floss, except I added in some magenta color because I really just wanted to add in some magenta. It's one of my favorite colors. And then I also had the idea that I wanted to do something similar to, as I mentioned before, adding fabric to a frame and then mounting the piece on the fabric. And I went to the fabric store, and for this one and the other one, I got a few different fabrics to see what I thought would work the best. And this one in the background that was very geometric, it has like somewhat of an orange rectangular oval-y thing in the background, and I just thought it worked really well, and it made the oranges in here pop. And yes, I loved it. And so I mounted it on here, and then I realized, then I started thinking like it's missing something, and I decided that I wanted to put a trim around it in green to pick up all the green that is present in the design. And so from leto.x.crossstitch, I found this mini pom-pom trim in Witchy, I think is the name of the color. All of this information will be in the description box below. And it looks so perfect with these colors. I think I picked a winner when it came to kind of color matching the pom-poms to the DMC that I used. So this is so nice. I did want to go with a simple black frame to kind of go with the black text in here. I thought it would mesh really well. I think it does. I'm not 100% sure if these are 8.5 by 11 frames or 8 by 10 frames. Something tells me these are 8.5 by 11. Do I have a piece of paper? Because, yeah, I think these are more 8.5 by 11. So that I was able to then, you could see more of the fabric instead of getting an 8 by 10, which maybe you would have only seen a teeny tiny bit of this fabric. But you don't need very much fabric for this. You can probably get away with 1/4 of a fabric for a something that's going to be framed in 8.5 by 11 frame. But I love this. I'm so excited to put this on my wall. I'm so excited to put all of them on my wall. The thing that is holding me back is that I need what I really like to use for this kind of thing, and since they're pretty light, since they don't, none of these, yeah, with the exception of Patriotic Palette, none of them have glass in them. So they're fairly light. It's just the frame and some fabric. A couple layers of fabric, maybe some chipboard, which is what I used here. I did mount it on some chipboard. I like to use the 3M picture hanging tape things. It's not a roll of tape. They come as little pieces, similar to like the command hooks, and it's 2 pieces of Velcro. One piece of it goes on the back of the frame and the other goes towards the wall, and they're Velcroed together so you can pull them off the wall and stick them around. You can like pull them off the wall, and if you have something the same size, you can put the strips in the same place. You can exchange them out really easily. It also saves the paint on the walls to use those. I have tried to use like Amazon brand a product similar to the 3M one, but like that I got from Amazon, and they do not work. So I really like the 3M ones. I just need to order some or go to the store and buy some of the picture hanging things. and then I can get going on these, because I think it'll make it really simple. It'll be really simple to hang these up. And also I like using those because you don't have to figure out where, like, see, this doesn't even have a hook on the back, but you don't have to put a nail in a very specific place and then try to hang it on there to make sure that it's straight and even and whatnot. You can literally just put the little sticky bits on here and then stick it to the wall however you want it to. And there is probably a little bit of give, but you obviously want to try to make it as straight and level as possible when you're doing that. But yeah, that's what I'm waiting on. Just been lazy, hadn't got to it yet, but hopefully I will soon. And then for some of these frames that have like this guy here, this is not a fancy frame. This is just something that I picked up from Michael's. I feel really okay just like removing this entire little flap thing that makes it a tabletop. So that's just gone, and then I will be able to mount it flatly using those little strips, and this won't be something in the way that's like preventing, you know, this side of it from connecting to the wall. You know, I think you know what I'm trying to say, but I'll be taking this back part off of it. And that is all of my fully finished objects. I did a lot this month, guys, and I'm really excited about that. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to my completed projects. So the first completed project that I have, I bought the Do Dragonfly class from Hands On Design that was part of the Spring Mingle, and I stitched it up and had it all ready to go ahead of the class, and then I didn't tune in for the class. I was planning to, and then I got distracted on the day, and then I was like, oh, I'll just watch the recording. And then I was sitting down to watch the recording during the Spring Mingle, and I was like, I shouldn't be wasting my time doing this. I should be in rooms or stitching or whatnot. So I still haven't done it, but I will. I have the paper instructions. I think you have 30 days. We might be running up close against that. So anyway, back to my completed pattern. Ooh, yes, and I will film something so that you could see this better than how it's showing right now. But this is the completed pattern for the Do Dragonfly class from Hands On Design. I used all of the called for flosses, and the fabric is a 16 count cherub by 16 count cherub. I can actually look it up in my little planner here. Cherub by Picture This Plus. It's like a great pink with a little bit of like kind of a cream modeling in here. And so I really wanted mine to look like the finished one that Kathy did. So that's why I decided to go with the pink. And I think it turned out great. I love the look of this pattern. This is the first pattern that I've ever hated stitching. I don't know why. It was such a slog for me to finish this. And I finished it in good time ahead of the class. Fred just knocked something off my table and is not playing with it. But I don't know why I didn't enjoy this one as much. I don't know if it was all the color changes or I don't know what it was. It was not an enjoyable stitch for me. But I'm super happy with the result, and I will be extra happy when I finally fully finish this. And my plan is to give this to my mom for her birthday, which is in August, and to also make the little dragonfly that was part of the class kit. And I will work on those sometime soon, hopefully. Okay, and the other pattern that I completed is actually a start and a finish. This is this sweet little guy is named Ferdinand. He is from the Artsy Housewives Patreon, and this was one of the April patterns. I think this was the tier 2 option pattern. So she does tier 2 is small, tier 3 is like a medium, and then tier 4 is like all of them, all 3 of the patterns. And so I really loved this little one. He is so cute. I love the colors that she used. I used all of the called for colors. I didn't make any changes except that I switched out. This yellow was originally charted to be this yellow here, and I don't know, I just like the brighter pop of this yellow, so I switched it out here and here. It's only in the pattern here around the eyes, and so I just wanted to be able to use it a little bit more than what had been charted, and so I added it to these two little flowers, and I think it looks great. And I am super excited to have this guy done. This was stitched on an 18 count. Picture this plus fabric, right? Is Picture this plus? Yes, it is. And the color Kermit. So it's like it's got like a slightly lime feel to it. The pattern itself was not model stitched, but like rendered. It was rendered with like a yellow background, and I got two other yellow fabrics. I think I showed all of this in the last video. And I don't know, once I put the floss against this color, I just thought it worked so much better than the straight yellows that I had picked for the other two. One was a really bright tropical yellow, and the other was like a very pale yellow with like blotches of green, and I thought that was the one I was going to go with, but I think I'm going to use it for another pattern. I bought all three of those fabrics from 1-2-3 Stitches, and I like doing that because one, it helps you get to see the like colors in real life, but doing that, I usually pick I only do that for really small projects, and like, so this is the piece that I purchased from 1-2-3 Stitch. It's like an eighth of a cut. So this is the whole thing that I bought and paid for. It's not like I cut this down in any way. Like, this is what came in the package. And so it's kind of nice to just be able to get like a small piece of small piece of fabric to use. It's really inexpensive to do that. I think that this was like $5, $5.37 stands out in my mind as how much like an eighth of fabric from Picture This Plus is. And I think the fact that it was called Kermit for a stitched piece about a frog is pretty kismet, and I love that. So I am super excited to get this one framed. Yeah, I think I'm planning to do a frame. And just today I was thinking about what do I have in my, I was thinking, oh, do I need to get like a 6x6 frame? And I remembered in my stash that Chantel from Chantel 141 had released these amazing like Polaroid wooden finishing pieces last year, and I bought 5 or 6 of them because I freaking love the look of Polaroids, and this one is such a great size. And I was thinking that this would look good in a 6x6 frame, and it would give you just a tiny bit of the green fabric around the amazing borders that Gigi is great at designing. This has an opening though for a 6.5 by 6.5 piece. So I'm gonna see, once I take this out, to see if I like that much of a margin around the side, or I could do the thing of finding maybe like a darker green fabric and backing it on the second piece of this, and then mounting the stitched piece on top, similar to how I've already done and shown in the fully finished objects. And then I get to decide if I want to paint this, if I want to paint this white or not, and then figure out how to adhere the two. And then, yeah, I think it would just go on my wall. And I'm really leaning toward this, unless it just really does not look good with a really big border, or I can't find like a good shade of green to back behind it. You know what? I don't actually need fabric. I could just paint this. I'm now realizing I could paint the background a green that I like, and then mount this on not cardstock, chipboard, and then mount it on the painted piece. So that's kind of a plan. Let's see if maybe I make that happen in the next couple of weeks. It's not likely, but I like that it's an option to consider. And I'm excited to use these because, like I said, about 5 or 6 of them, and I have yet to, honestly, can I be very honest with you? I only opened the box of them like last week because I was organizing my stuff. And I've had them in my stash since last fall, but I knew exactly what was in the box, so it wasn't like I needed to tear the box open to look at it. I'm really weird. I'm really weird that way. My mom and my husband, both of them tease me about, they both tease me about the fact that I can leave boxes unopened for months at a time. It's also really bad to do that because then I can't return things. If like something's messed up, I need to get better about it. Okay, so now I'm going to transition to show you my WIPs. I don't have many WIPs in general in life. I don't have many WIPs. At the moment, as of June 2nd, when I'm filming this, I have 12 WIPs. And some of those WIPs are ones that I wouldn't even be working on in this season because I am a seasonal stitcher. So 4 of those are like winter and or Christmas projects. So I wouldn't even be working on them right now. And then I have a Halloween WIP out there, so that's 6. So then, therefore, I only have 6 WIPs currently in progress, and that's like a decent number for me. I think that that's a good number of projects to be able to flip and mix in between and not feel too overwhelmed. Because I honestly feel like if I had a lot of WIPs going, I feel like I would never get progress on them, and I would be like disappointed in some way. I don't know. That's just me. I know people are great with many WIPs. I love seeing your videos showing me all your WIPs, especially because I learn about so many amazing artists that way, because you guys are showing me what you're stitching on when I watch other Flosstube videos. So I have no problems with many WIPs. I personally just prefer to have a minimal number so that I can make good progress on each of them and hopefully get to a finish within roughly a year or so of starting them. I also am a stitcher, and I know this about myself. I don't do big projects. I don't have, the biggest project I have is a big one. It's 52,000 stitches. That is not one I'm planning to finish within a year. It's already been a full year and a half. I'm hoping to finish that one in like 5 years because it's full coverage, it's beautiful, but it's lots of stitches. And then after that, my next biggest WIP is 22,000 stitches. It's my birthday start from 2025, the Moonlight Sampler. So I tend to like little guys, and it's kind of in the vein of like small guys that are like maybe 1,500 stitches, and around like under 10,000 stitches are kind of the sweet spot for me. I really like just smaller pieces. I don't know if it's the bigger ones are just really intimidating to me, or I just know it's going to take way more time than I want to invest in whatever the image is at the end of the day. So yeah, kind of rambling here, but I really like smaller WIPs and a smaller number of WIPs. But let me show you a new start that I started at the very end of March, and that is the Closely Kept #1 pattern from Shaded Stitchery, Nuri. And I started this as a as part of the Closely Kept SAL that I think Eli from Thick Threads is hosting. He may have a partner alongside him hosting that SAL, but I just love the Closely Kept series, and I definitely wanted to stitch one of them. I am part of Nuri's Patreon, so I get lots of patterns from her, and then in addition, love the patterns that she's already put out there. And the nice thing about being part of 2 of the tiers in her Patreon is that she gives you a discount code to use towards already existing patterns that are in her shop. So I'm not at the highest tier. I'm at the next highest tier, so I get 10% off my any purchases in her shop. So I went and grabbed Closely Kept with my 10% discount code, and I got this started at the very end of the month. I really wanted to get it started. It's such a small project. Like this is a tiny project. I'm already like 30% of the way done with it. So I figured out that if I sit down with it 4 times, I can finish it. So it'll be finished really quickly, but it's the only other new start other than Ferdinand that I did in the month of May. And I really love what it looks like. And I mentioned in my last Flosstube that I have plans to frame this similar to the daguerreotypes that Yuri used as inspiration for charting these pieces. And I plan to pair this with a photo of me and my husband on our wedding day, because this was one of the colors. These are some of the colors from my wedding dress. I did not wear a traditional white wedding dress, so I got to pick some really bright, beautiful, bold colors to go alongside the photo because of that. Okay, so I may or may not have mentioned it in the last video. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm now obsessed with Gigi from the Artsy Housewife and her patterns, and her and Boone are adorable, and I love their Flosstube. And I loved getting to meet them via their Flosstube. They seem really fun and cool. And so I joined Gigi's Patreon, started stitching Ferdinand, and then as part of Gigi's Patreon, she gives you access to a very specific Patreon design store that's different from her typical store, her like her main.com, and it's just the patterns that have been released via Patreon, and you only get access to it if you are part of the Patreon. I think the code changes like every month or something like that. It's password protected to be able to get to this specific website, and I think that the password changes every month. And anyway, I went through there. I ended up buying 3 patterns, which I'll also pop on the screen the other 2 that I purchased. But I wanted to show you that I got started on Warm Waters. I couldn't not start on this when I saw it. It was so exciting to me to see an octopus, and I started this last month. So I think you saw maybe like this, and then I've added to it obviously this month, and I knew this month in May that Remarkably Bright Creatures, the book, was made into a movie starring Sally Field, and that the movie would be coming out on Netflix this month. And so knowing that was happening, knowing that I was going to be watching it, my mom and I both read the book, both loved the book. We were super excited to watch the movie. And then seeing this little octopus, I was like, let me do this in celebration of the Remarkably Bright Creatures movie coming out. And I love this. He's so fun. I don't know, should I name him Marcellus too? He might be Marcellus. I don't know. He's kind of Marcellus's color. But I am stitching this on an 18 count fabric from Under the Sea Fabrics. This is one of the fabrics of the month. I believe this is the March fabric. It's called Ray or Rhea, R-H-E-A. It's this beautiful like turquoise with like splotches of like light blue in it, and I'm using all of the called for floss with 2 additions. So there's a limited number of colors in the patterns, which I really appreciate. You don't have to buy like a ton of flosses to make this. I think there was like 14 floss colors in this. And I really liked how it was looking, and I have it I have it in my Markup RX program so that I can keep track of my stitches. And in Markup RX, you can choose like whatever color you're going to work on next, and it'll highlight in yellow the stitches, where the stitches are in the pattern, so you don't have to go looking for them, which is really nice. But looking at the screen a bunch, that yellow kind of looked limey on the screen, and I really liked it with the other colors that were part of this pattern. And so I just decided I was gonna add some lime green in, and that is what I did. So across the top here, I'm like, this is like the halfway point right here. This is the quarter point right here. I'm halfway through the border at the top. It's just a repetition of these kind of floral, they kind of make me think of florals, and then they also make me think of ginkgo leaves for some reason. I guess it's these guys right here that make me think of ginkgo leaves. And well, let's see, can you even see me point to them? Like these at the top, they kind of look like ginkgo leaves. So I switched, this is meant to be a line that looks identical all the way across, and I just switched out the like kind of grayish green for this limey green, and then I'm gonna add it again down the line too, so it's not just there by itself. And then I maybe, like there's a fish down here, I'm gonna switch out that color to add more lime there. And I am just loving how this is coming together. I actually took this with me, and I'll talk about this in my life update section, but I took this with me to visit my aunt and my cousin, and my cousin's brand new little baby down in the valley here in Texas. I took it with me, and I stitched on it in the evenings while my mom and my aunt and I watched TV and stuff. And so now I have really fun memories associated with stitching this as well, because I was with family and not just here at home, me and my husband just watching our usual TV, having our normal routine. So I really love how this is coming together. I'm so excited to continue. Okay, and then the last two WIPs that I worked on this month, I am working on them as part of WIP Drag Race, or hashtag WIP Drag Race. It is a SAL or challenge that Eli from Thick Threads is hosting along with, I think it's Feather Dust Stitching. It will be linked below. And it's just an opportunity to figure out what WIP to work on based on the show Drag Race. I participated in it for the season 18 airing of the show, and now we're into All Stars season 11, so I am also participating around that. And I think this time I kind of figured it out, guys. The format this year, as was the case last year for Drag Race All Stars, is they have 3 different brackets of competition, and then they whittle it down to 2 queens from each bracket, and when the brackets are then condensed from that pool of contestants, then they pick a winner. So because there's 3 brackets, I decided to make it really simple for myself, and also because I don't have a lot of WIPs, to just assign a WIP to each bracket. Simple. And one of the lovely participants of this challenge, I will have to put her name on the screen, her Instagram on the stream, and or in the description, both probably, had the idea to do it that way, and I was like, this is genius, and this is, I think, going to solve the problem I had, because I felt like during season 18, the beginning of the year, all I was doing was new start, new start, new start, which for me, as a smaller WIP person, a smaller number of WIPs person, it was overwhelming and I didn't like it. So for the orange bracket, I assigned this DMC pattern that I got in a kit. It is, I got in a kit from eBay, and it's the double-decker red bus, and for every episode when it was just the green bracket, trying to whittle itself down to 2 queens, I stitched 3 hours on this, because this is the only pattern I have that I'm working off of a paper copy, so I couldn't keep track of this like individual stitches. So this is where I have got, and I really am pleased with the amount of stitching that has happened here, and how much additional stitching that I was able to add. So this is all of the stitching for the first 3 episodes, so it represents 9 hours of stitching, but really I stitched more than 9 hours. but for the sake of the challenge, it's 9 hours. And so I've finished. This is obviously the top of the bust. I finished with all the bunting. I have 4 little windows here, and I need to add, I think, a bowler hat here and then work my way down. But when I started on this, I had like maybe this. I sat down and stitched it one sitting, and I just really wanted to add to it. So I thought that's why it was very important for me to include this in WIP Drag Race so that I could get some progress on it. Okay, and then the very last WIP that I worked on was also for WIP Drag Race, and this is for the pink bracket, which there have only been 2 episodes featuring the pink bracket, but I think I've got some really great fun progress in on this guy. It is Strawberry Mountain from xJuDesign Stitches, and I picked it because, again, I started it at the beginning of the year for season 18 WIP Drag Race, and I got it started and then I never touched it again. And so I wanted to make sure that I was putting some stitches into it because it's so beautiful. I love it a ton. I know lots of people are going to be stitching on it for the next month or months for the Strawberry Sal stitch along. Wait, that's what Sal stands for. Strawberry Moon Stitch Along, I think is what it's called. And I started with some of the framing, and I got to some of the beautiful fun colors, and I am so excited to be stitching this one. This is the first project I have ever done on 20 count Aida. I'm using a single strand of DMC, all the called for DMC, and I like it. It's totally fine to stitch. It's maybe a little bit quicker than stitching 2 strand. So I don't know if I may or may not fully commit to 20 count going forward. But I like just mixing 20 count. 18 count Aida double strand is my bread and butter. It's what I go to. It's my go-to. I really love it. But I like having 20 count mixed in here and there, just to add some diversity to my stitching, make it a different, somewhat of a different process for me than typical double strand. But I love it, and I am super happy with the progress. And we have one more week of the pink bracket, so I'll be adding another 300 stitches to it, and then we'll move on to the purple bracket, and I'll be on to a different project. But this is the last WIP I have to show you, and then I'll talk a little bit more about my plans and show you just some really quick haul. No big deal, but that is what's coming next. So regarding my plans, I think I am going to take the lead from, I think it's the Snail Stitcher, Sam, I believe is her name in her Flosstube and Insta account. I will make sure that all of that information is down below in the description. But she doesn't refer to plans as plans. She refers to them as ideas. And I think that I need to reframe and consider my plans ideas, because I find it comical when I say in these videos, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this over the next month, and you'll see it in the next video, and then I maybe do like one of them and then 3 other things that I didn't even mention, because I just get so excited. And you know what it's like to find like a new pattern and you're like, I want to stitch this immediately, so I'm gonna kit it up ahead of everything else that I've already said I was gonna do. We all know how exciting that can be. So these are not my plans, these are now some ideas I have for the month of June. Mainly my plan for the month of June is to know that at the end of the month I get to go to the Stitching Sirens Retreat here in San Antonio, hosted by Under the Sea Fabrics. So I need to get ready for that, and I plan to have some paper copies of the Patriotic Palette pattern available, and I need to design and have printed a little card that will link people to the digital pattern if they so desire. So that's one of the plans and things that I'm going to be working on. In regards to specific stitching, I have a few new starts that I want to get to. I may have said these same plans in the last Flosstube, I can't remember off the top of my head. But what I would like to start in June is Coffee and Eggs from the Artsy Housewife. That was the pattern that got me started on this whole journey and joining Gigi's Patreon and the whole 9 yards. I have loved that pattern for so long, and then I saw that Stephanie from Around the Globe Stitching was stitching it. Then I saw Annie from XO Needle in the Hay XO also started stitching it so adorably on fabric that she added dots to. And she did what I plan to do. She interchanged the hair color of the lovely lady that's featured in the pattern to black hair, which is also what I also plan to do because hello. And I was thinking that I was going to do this on a piece of fabric that I have in my stash, but when I went to my LNS, which is Under the Sea Fabrics, and grabbed all the beautiful overdye fancy glosses, I brought the piece that I was thinking I was going to use, and it just was, they were not popping off of it the way they were to the beautiful piece of fabric that I picked up from Under the Sea. It's called Fanus, F-A-N-N-U-S, Fanus, probably Norwegian, I'm not 100% sure. Gorgeous color, the colors, the floss just like sings off of it. I'm so excited to work on it. I had her cut down the fat half to a fat quarter, and now I wish I hadn't because I've thought of like 3 additional projects that I would love to stitch on that fabric. It's a really great kind of a neutral color, but not. So excited to get that one going. I think that's going to be the first new start of the month. The second new start of the month that I'd like to focus on is I believe it's called Comfort Lighthouse from Carriage House Sampling, and I bought it from Hello from Liz Matthews, now owns that company. I bought it from the website. I was part of her Patreon at that point. I've now stopped my Patreon. I only enrolled for a month, and I ended up getting like 3 months worth of patterns because she's now extending the length of time that those are available, which was amazing. I really liked Liz Matthews. I liked the patterns that she was making, but I felt like there were ones that I would love to do, but would never probably put them on my WIP list to do. They might just be hanging out for who knows how long. Versus Gigi and Nuri from the Artsy Housewife and Shaded Stitchery, where I immediately want to start stitching those projects, and I did in the Artsy Housewife's case, and I did with some of Nuri's. I'm very behind, but yes, I just love, and I'm ready to dive into those projects like almost as soon as I get them, even though, like I said, I haven't stitched as many from Nuri, but I have plans to, and so they get me really excited. And so those are the 2 Patreons that I'm part of. And so regarding plans, I went down this rabbit trail to go back to Comfort Lighthouse, which is the pattern that was released by Liz under the Carriage House Sampling website brand name, and I'm really excited to stitch this one for a really weird reason, and this is how weird my brain gets. My husband and I have been watching Widow's Bay on Apple TV, and it's starring Matthew Rhys, who was in the very popular show The Americans with his now partner Carrie Russell, and I had seen some of the trailers and I was like, oh, this looks really good. People were talking about it had like Stephen King vibes to it. I don't know a lot about Stephen King. I've read one of his books, and it was like more of a fairy tale than a horror. But I like the idea of a Stephen King-esque movie, TV show. And so we've tuned in and we really like and enjoy it. It has been so good. It's horror, but there's a lot of humor in it, and it's not just straight horror, and it hasn't been very gory, which is nice. But we've really enjoyed it, and I don't know, as soon as I saw the Comfort Lighthouse, I was like, this reminds me of Widow's Bay, because it's set in like some sort of a like Cape Cod, upper northeast coastal imaginary island. It's not a real place, and everything gets creepy there. And I've even been thinking about, like, can I make the mermaid look creepier? Can I add some of the elements from the like rearrange some things and maybe not include like the large sailboat, and add some other elements that may come from the show as kind of a reference. Anyway, I already have a frame. Like, I was randomly walking out of Michael's picking up a different frame, and I saw this one at 40% off, and the colors and the pattern on it made me think of Comfort Lighthouse. And so I was like, okay, this is happening. I'm going home, buying the pattern. I am planning to stitch it on, I got a 20 count, another 20 count because I got a frame for it already. So the frame is a 6x8 frame, luckily, and in order to make the pattern work, it will absolutely work on the shorter side, but the longer side, I need to either eliminate something or figure out where I can delete some rows to make sure that it fits and isn't going to get cut off. Or I can just know that part of my pattern is going to be folded under and not visible when I actually get around to framing it. Anyway, that's another plan that I have to work on Comfort Lighthouse. And I'm super excited to get that one started. And then the last plan that I have is to participate in the SpeakOutSummerSAL that was just announced as starting in June 14th, and I will make sure to include the Instagram name for the person who is hosting this. I'm sorry, I can't remember it. I just discovered your account today, but I've already decided that I'm going to participate, and I'm very excited to stitch Radicalized by Basic Decency from Son of a Stitch. I just loved the text-based element to his design, and also the beautiful florals that are included in there. And then I also want to figure out a way to incorporate in the description of that pattern. It's a pattern that has text and has florals, and all of the florals have very specific meaning and represent very specific ideals, principles, notions, and he explains it in the description. And I kind of want to figure out if I can add text around the pattern so that you're aware of what the significance of each of the flowers is. Because without it, I would struggle to remember what is what flower represents what image, thing, ideal, value, notion. And so I might try to figure out a way to incorporate that. I already have fabric that I know I can use. It was a fabric of the month from Under the Sea Fabrics last year. It's called Onyx, so it's beautiful gray. And then I just need to kit up some floss and I can get going on that one. It kicks off June 14th. I will be joining it. I'm really excited about it. I plan to continue to participate in WIP Drag Race. I'm really excited about it and the fact that I have just these 3 whips, and I think it's going to be so much better, and not so much better, so much easier for me than the last time I tried to do it. And I think I'm going to be able to keep up with it, so I'm really excited to continue that. I'm going to go ahead and skip haul because I really didn't get very much, and I can probably combine it in another video later when I have more haul to share. So skipping haul, so you don't have to worry about that. But I am now going to go into some life updates. This is something that I've not really added to my videos in the past or to my Flosstubes in the past, but I just thought it'd be a good idea to share a little bit more about me and what's been going on in my life. So May 2026, my husband and I celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary. And then later this year, we will celebrate our 18th year of dating, or of being a couple. So we've been together for a long time, but we waited 10 years to get married. And we had a wonderful couple of days celebrating our anniversary. So the original plan was for us to go to this mineral springs that's outside of San Antonio. And it is just like springs in the middle of this very rural area. and it's done very nicely, and you can buy a day pass, hang out in the various pools. They have a spa, you can add on massages and different things. They have food and drink available for you at all times. And so that was our plan for the day of our anniversary. But some weather patterns were coming through, and the place that we're going decided they needed to reschedule everyone because it just might not be safe to be in the water because there was the potential for lightning. So then we had to figure out, well, what are we going to actually do now? We ended up rescheduling that to this past Sunday the 30th, I believe, maybe the 31st, Sunday the 31st. We went and did all of that then, and it was an amazing, beautiful day, and we had such a wonderful time. And I, at one point, was just like laying in the beach chair saying like, oh, this is so amazing. I'm so glad we did this. So that was one of our celebrations. But on the actual day of our anniversary, which is the 24th of May, we decided to go get brunch at a spot here in San Antonio. It's called the Gunther House. It is an old Victorian home that was converted into a museum / restaurant. It's just kind of like a fancier place to have brunch at than your typical restaurant. My husband really likes it. It's nice. The food is fine. We ended up having to wait really long, which is the worst thing about the place, is like they don't do reservations, so we had an hour and like 15-minute wait, but there's pretty grounds that you sit at, and you know, we were just sitting on a bench chatting for most of that. And then we got our tables, and then it took about like, we got our table, we ordered, and then it took like half an hour to get our food, which was so confusing to me because they do this every weekend, and I didn't understand how the kitchen got so backed up that literally no one in the area we were sitting on, not a single person had food on their table. And even the wait staff were like kind of hiding from everyone because they didn't want to be berated for how long the food was taking. But anyway, it ended up being good. The food is really great. It's not the most amazing meal you'll ever have and worth all of the waiting, but it was still good. And then we decided to go visit the San Antonio Zoo, which just in the past few months, the zoo has introduced several gorillas to our zoo. That we've not had gorillas in 30 years. I was very, very young, but do recall when we did have a single gorilla, and then he went to live in DC, and they promised us one day that they would bring back gorillas, and they did actually. That we have 7 now. So we got to see the new enclosure, which is fantastic. They did such a great job with it, and we got to see some of the gorillas were really far away from you know, where people can stand and view them, but then they have this amazing like bubble thing you can get in that like juts into the enclosure. And as we were looking at one of the gorillas in the distance, another gorilla like came over the bubble and sat like 2 or 3 feet away from us, so we were able to see him like up close and personal, and it was just great. It was a nice day. It was really hot, we were really sweaty, but we just took our time. I say we took our time, but really we weren't there for very long because we're now annual membership people. What do they call those? We're now members, I guess. And so we have an annual pass, and we can go anytime. So we were like, let's just see what we want to see. And so we kind of beeline to the hippos, which we have met before. We actually did a meet and greet with the hippos and got to feed them. I think we did that in 2022. Fun fact, hippos can get COVID. So we had to wear masks. Obviously had to wash our hands, and we had to wear masks. So in the event that one of us might have had COVID and could have passed it on to the hippos. We got to feed them food, which was amazing. So we met Timothy and his grandmother Uma in the past, so we said hi, went through there. And then the Africa part of our zoo is actually probably the best part. We walked through and saw okapi, and we saw the wild African dogs, wild painted dogs, and then our giraffes. We've got some new giraffes that have come in. We used to have a dad and 2 brothers, so it was like a bachelor group, and through conservation efforts they've now brought in some females, and so we have new giraffes, which is always fun. We have some female giraffes, which we have not had in a while, so that's great. But again, the gorillas were really the reason we went, and it was totally worth it. it was very, very cool to see them. Even from very far away, you could see how huge these creatures are, and make you appreciate how big wild animals can be. So yeah, that's what we did for our anniversary. In terms of other life stuff, oh, I mentioned earlier that I went to Mission, Texas, or down to the valley, which I specifically went to Mission, Texas, which is where my aunt lives with her partner, and then her daughter, my cousin, and her boyfriend also live down there. And my cousin just had her second baby, sweet Rory Reed. He was born March 6th, but this was the first opportunity we had to go visit him. Texas is big, y'all. So we're very central in San Antonio, and it takes us 4 hours to get to her house, which is essentially on the border with Mexico. Actually, there's parts of Mission, Texas that are technically in Mexico. So it takes us 4 hours to get to that part of the border. So it's not like we take this trip very often because it's kind of a long ways to drive. And we got to meet the new baby. We got to see her 18-month-old, 19-month-old, I can't remember, Sunny Lane, who's so fun and so funny, and he's like starting to talk, and he does silly things. And we'd ask him, he's very good at saying no. He'd go, no. And it was cracking us up the entire weekend. And then I had this crazy full circle moment where I remember when Emily, my cousin, was a baby. And when she was a baby, we'd, read her books and ask her, like, how does this animal go? How does this creature sound? And I remember we asked her, Emily, how does the duck go? And she would go, cack, cack. And it was so cute and so sweet. And we laughed, and she didn't understand why we were laughing. Of course, she's just little. And so then her dad taught her that they're laughing because you're not saying it right. You need to say quack, quack. And so we'd ask her again, like, Emily, how does the duck go? And she overcorrected. And at that point, she started saying, ducks go coo-wack, coo-wack, which is just like one of my favorite memories from her. We're 10 years apart in age, and so yeah, I was there when she was really tiny, and I remember stuff from when she was really small. They were at our house all the time, so I literally got to watch her grow up. And now I got to meet her second baby, and then while we were there, her oldest son, Sonny, was making the sounds of animals, and someone said, Sonny, how does a duck go? And he went quack, quack. And it melted my heart, made me feel a little bit old, but still, it was such a beautiful moment to have literally that full circle moment of hearing her as a little girl, and then now hearing her son also quack, quacking. And I have a cross stitch piece that I want to start working on for her. It's called the Duck Quacker, not the Duck Quaker, the Duck Quacker, I think. I have it kitted, I just haven't started it. And part of my reasoning behind picking that is because of the cute duck memory. So one of these days I'll get that started and going for her. But I think that is all for now. I've given you lots of cross-stitch stuff. I've given you a little bit of personal stuff. I do want to start talking about books on this channel as well. I definitely don't want it to be more than just a very small couple of minutes where I'm chatting about the things that I've been reading recently. So actually I'm going to do the books part instead of saying this is it for now. Let me go on to books. So I'm a big reader. I used to work adjacent to the publishing industry. I worked for a book event, and I have been a reader my entire life. I loved reading. It was one thing my mom and I would do together when I was young. Like we'd go to a lot of times we'd go to Half Price Books, get books, and then we'd like lay in the bed and read together. And I'd ask her, Mom, you want to come read with me and stuff like that. So I have lots of great memories of us reading together. And one thing she always told me was that she'd always buy me books, which I was very blessed to have tons of books around. I still love reading. One thing that I have made a very conscious effort to do in the last few years is to make sure that I'm reading from diverse authors. At some point in probably like 2018, maybe 2019, I was like documenting my reading as part of my scrapbooking stuff, and I was realizing that all of the authors I were reading were predominantly white female authors. And so there is some diversity there in the fact that they're female authors, but I was conscious of so sorry, I don't know when my camera cut off, so I just wanted to say that I really, really love The Legacy of Orisha, The Legacy of Orisha by Tommy Adeyemi. It's a 3-book series: Children of Blood and Bone, Children of Virtue and Vengeance, Children of Anarchy and Anguish, or maybe I flip-flopped those two. 3-part series, fantasy, loved it, loved living in that world, was like super excited to come back to it every night as I was reading. Really fun fantasy series that you should check out if you haven't already. And then I mentioned, I don't know what got cut, but I don't read a lot of fiction, or excuse me, I don't read a lot of nonfiction, but the nonfiction that I love to read are memoirs. I love memoirs. And I often listen to them in audiobook format. And I especially love when it's like the author reading the book, because then it kind of feels like they're telling you their story. So yeah. So the audiobook that I have been listening to, and I'm almost finished with, is I Am Malala. And I don't know why it took me this long to listen to that book. I knew very little about Malala, other than she's like the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner, and I knew it had to do with her efforts in support of girls' education. But now I know so much more, and I am so impressed by her. She is younger than me, but like she's a total hero of mine, and her story is amazing. I really recommend the book and or audiobook. Unfortunately, this one is not read by Malala herself. She has a narrator. I believe that Malala does read the preface. You do get to hear her voice a little bit in it. But overall, just a great read and great something to listen to. My mom and I listened to it on the way down to the valley and on the way back. And then I have just a little bit left to go, and then I'll be done with it. The last book that I'm going to talk about is a memoir that I read. It is Know My Name by Chanel Miller, and in it is the story of Chanel. And Chanel was the Emily Doe of the Brock Turner case that occurred in California several years ago. Yes, there is some difficult subject matter in that it does talk about SA, sexual assault. But Chanel is such a beautiful writer. It is so thought-provoking. It is so well written. I kind of wish that I don't know why I ended up with an ebook copy of it instead of going with the audiobook. I'm not sure if she reads the audiobook or not. Either way, I read this one versus hearing it. And I think I'm glad that I read it instead of listened to it, because then I got to appreciate the words so much more. I'm better visual than audio, so seeing the words made me appreciate them so much more, and she just strings words together so beautifully, is so well written. She's meant to be an author. She is an author, also of middle grade graphic novels. But her story is amazing and really difficult, and it's not so much the essay part that was difficult for me. The most difficult parts for me were her having to interact with and deal with the criminal justice system, and how it so easily fails women and survivors of SA, and having to go up against this mighty machine, and in her case, win, in some regards, and other regards not. I cannot, like, this has now become, it's weird to say it, but this has now become one of my favorite books of all time, because it is so well written. And I just appreciated so much hearing Chanel tell her story and her struggles. Another person who's younger than me, I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure she's younger than me, who's now a hero as well. And so I just thought it was fantastic to be listening to one and reading another kind of around each other and just getting real true inspiration from two young women. And it's just been great to learn about their stories. Difficult to hear some parts of their stories, but overwhelmingly inspirational to hear their stories. So that is it for this Flosstube video, Flosstube number 8. I really appreciate you taking some time to be here, to listen to me, to learn about me, to see what I'm stitching, to find out what I'm thinking and reading. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be here. If you wouldn't mind hitting like or subscribe if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.